let's dive into the Marvel Cinematic Universe series. According to the chronological timeline of the story, this is the 7th movie in the MCU, and it's widely regarded as one of the best in the entire series. That movie is none other than 2012's The Avengers. Its release marked the near conclusion of Phase 1 of the MCU. Without further ado, let's jump right into the main event. Following the events of Thor, Loki's lust for power did not diminish after his defeat in Asgard. Instead, he retreated into the infinite depths of the cosmos, scheming an even grander plot. It wasn't long before Loki struck a deal with the most terrifying force in the universe, Thanos. If Loki could help Thanos acquire the Tesseract from Earth, Thanos would, in return, assist Loki in becoming the ruler of the Blue Planet. As a sign of good faith, Thanos even gifted Loki a scepter embedded with the Mind Stone, its power capable of bending wills and shaking the very foundations of the world. S-H-I-E-L-D soon sensed that an ominous shadow was creeping over the peace they had worked to protect. In a hidden base, the blaring of emergency alarms suddenly pierced the silence of the night. Director Fury rushed in, his face dark with concern as he urgently asked what was happening. Hawkeye, in charge of security, innocently explained that some unknown force was stirring on the other side of the Tesseract. Fury frowned at the explanation, ready to investigate further, but just then, a blinding blue light erupted from the Tesseract, and within it, a swirling vortex of space-time began to form. Emerging from the light, pale-faced and with a cunning glint in his eyes, stood none other than Loki.
Sir, please put down the spear.
Fury attempted to calm him down with words, but this only seemed to pour fuel on the fire, thoroughly enraging Loki. Before anyone could react, Loki swung his scepter, instantly taking down several S.H.I.E.L.D. agents with terrifying ruthlessness. Hawkeye stepped forward, ready to defend his comrades, but was unfortunately ensnared by the scepter. Losing control of his mind, Loki repeated the trick, and even Dr. Erik Selvig fell under his control without resistance. As the situation spiraled out of control, Fury made a quick decision, secretly taking the Tesseract and attempting to escape through the back entrance, only to be shot down by Hawkeye. In the ensuing chaos, Loki and his group made their escape. The base was in utter disarray, with people scrambling to flee. With Hawkeye providing cover, Loki's team brazenly strolled out of the facility, even driving off right under Agent Hill's nose.
Do you copy?
Martin,
The gravely injured Fury, using the last bit of his strength, escaped from the building just as it was about to collapse and boarded the final helicopter. Moments later, the entire base caved in completely. S-H-I-E-L-D's years of effort were reduced to rubble in an instant. Once safe, Fury immediately issued an emergency alert. Agent Hill reacted swiftly, leading a large team of agents in pursuit of Loki, but it was clear they had underestimated the power of this cunning adversary. After a fierce battle, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents suffered heavy losses, nearly wiped out. In a critical moment, Fury arrived in a helicopter to provide support, raising his gun for one last shot at Loki. However, Loki merely waved his scepter, easily knocking the helicopter out of the sky, sending Fury plummeting. Fury narrowly survived, but Loki and his team had fully escaped. Fury realized it was time to activate the long-dormant plan. Not long after, Black Widow infiltrated a slum hidden deep within the tropical jungle, where she found the reclusive Dr. Bruce Banner. Without any preamble, she laid out S.H.I.E.L.D.'s intent to recruit the brilliant scientist with expertise in gamma radiation to help track down the Tesseract.
Facing a potential global catastrophe.
Those I actively try to avoid.
This is the Tesseract. It has the potential energy to wipe out the planet.
What does Fury want me to do? Swallow it?
He wants you to find it. It's been taken. It emits a gamma signature that's too weak for us to trace. There's no one that knows gamma radiation like you do. If there was, that's where I'd be.
But Bruce was skeptical of Black Widow's words, fearing she might have been sent by the US military to capture him. In response, Bruce roared, trying to scare her off. It worked. Black Widow was momentarily speechless, knowing that if the Hulk emerged, she'd be done for. Thankfully, the situation passed without incident, and Black Widow finally persuaded Bruce to join the mission to protect Earth. Meanwhile, Steve Rogers' Captain America had awoken from his frozen slumber and was struggling to adjust to a world that felt both familiar and foreign. He locked himself in a room, pounding away at a punching bag, trying to release his inner turmoil and forget the painful memories of the past. But when Fury informed him that the Tesseract had been stolen, Steve didn't hesitate to join the Avengers and fight to defend the world. Fury arranged for each team member to have an intensive learning schedule. However, Steve confidently claimed that he had already seen most of this world's advanced technology and didn't need any more lessons. Fury bet him otherwise. Elsewhere, Tony Stark Iron Man was making the final push on his clean energy project at the bottom of the sea, determined to transform Stark Tower into a beacon powered by his new energy source. After Tony completed the project, he immediately celebrated with Pepper, reveling in their success, but the unexpected arrival of Agent Coulson quickly shattered the peaceful moment. Despite Tony's attempts to make excuses and send him away, Coulson bypassed his security, entering the lab effortlessly via the encrypted elevator. Tony, both frustrated and impressed by S.H.I.E.L.D.'s hacking skills, had no choice but to listen. The file Coulson handed him caught Tony's attention. The Avengers initiative had been greenlit, and Tony began seriously studying his future teammates. Soon enough, those teammates arrived aboard a massive aircraft carrier. At first, Steve felt a sense of familiarity and comfort. It was just like any other aircraft carrier, but it wasn't long before he was stunned to discover that the carrier could transform and take flight. With a single command from Fury, the carrier activated its cloaking technology, disappearing from sight. At that moment, Steve, fully conceding, pulled out the money and handed it to Fury. The Avengers were relentlessly tracking Loki's movements. At this point, Loki had already led his team to infiltrate Germany. Hawkeye, without a trace, disabled the building's security system. Meanwhile, Loki, dressed in a sharp suit and holding his scepter, boldly strolled into a high society banquet. He swiftly took down the security personnel who tried to stop him, then grabbed the host of the event, pinning him against a stone platform, taking him hostage. At the same time, Hawkeye sent over good news from the other side. He had successfully unlocked the vault and retrieved the rare metal iridium. Iridium was the key to Loki's plan. With it, he could use the Tesseract to open a portal and summon the Chitauri army to Earth. But even after obtaining what he needed, Loki didn't rush to leave. Instead, he used an illusion spell to gather the fleeing crowd at the hotel entrance, forcing them to kneel and submit to him. At that moment, an ordinary-looking old man bravely stood up, openly defying Loki's authority. Based on speculation, this old man could very well have been an elderly Steve Rogers who traveled back in time. Loki was infuriated by this act of defiance. He raised his scepter, prepared to execute the old man on the spot. But just as the situation reached a critical point, Captain America appeared in the nick of time, shielding the old man from the deadly blow. A fierce battle broke out between Captain America and Loki. Although Steve was one of the strongest humans on Earth, he still struggled when faced with Loki's godlike power. The fight quickly turned one-sided, with Captain America forced to retreat under Loki's relentless attacks. In this dire moment, Iron Man arrived just in time, blasting Loki with a repulsor shot and landing gracefully on the battlefield, ready to join the fight. However, in an unexpected twist, the moment Loki saw Iron Man, he immediately surrendered without resistance, much to Captain America's embarrassment and confusion. On the way back, Steve couldn't help but warn Tony to be cautious, reminding him that Loki might be playing a trick. After all, the power Loki had displayed earlier was enough to strike fear into anyone, but Tony just laughed it off. Reassuring Steve that he knew what he was doing, he told him not to worry, saying, "We're the Avengers. There's nothing we can't handle." However, Tony, immersed in his own arrogance, ignored the warnings around him. He even threw a mocking smirk at Steve, sarcastically implying that he was too old and outdated. Steve, in a calm manner, builds up a defense with his words and tries to wake up Tony's sanity, but the wheels of fate had already begun to turn, quietly pulling them into Loki's scheme. The sky suddenly erupted with thunder and lightning, violently tearing apart the illusion of calm. Loki's face twisted in the flash of light. He knew that the man he hated most had arrived. Sensing the danger, Tony quickly opened the hatch to investigate, only to be met by the imposing figure of Thor. Thor appeared to disregard everything around him, and with a single swing of his hammer, he sent Tony crashing to the ground. Before they could react, Thor took Loki like lightning. Tony attempted to pursue but was rationally held back by Steve, who knew that acting impulsively would only escalate the chaos. He suggested they devise a thorough plan first, but Tony's arrogance could not be easily quelled. In an instant, Thor, with Loki in tow, descended upon an unknown land. He commanded Loki with authority to surrender the Tesseract and return to Asgard with him, but Loki's heart had long turned cold as iron, and he no longer felt any attachment to Asgard. Now, his mind was consumed solely by the ambition to conquer Earth. Thor was enraged upon hearing this, ready to strike, but was abruptly interrupted by Tony's sudden charge. Though Tony's hit didn't seriously harm Thor, it made him realize that Tony was no ordinary opponent. Thor warned Tony to stay out of the affairs of the gods, but Tony responded with a cold laugh, saying, "Hand over the Tesseract, and you Asgardians can go wherever you like." Thor, feeling his pride wounded, hurled his hammer in fury, sending Iron Man flying several meters. Yet Tony wasn't one to back down. He quickly got back on his feet, his repulsors glowing brightly as he launched into a fierce battle with Thor.
Power 400% capacity.
Tony, agile and swift, utilized the advantages of his armor, aiming to end the fight quickly. Thor, as immovable as a mountain, countered with the full force of thunder, each swing of his hammer accompanied by deafening roars. The two clashed fiercely, battling between the sky and the ground, with a level of intensity that was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Although Tony was using the Mark III suit, his unwavering determination and sharp tactics made even the mighty god of Asgard feel challenged. Just as the fight reached its peak, a familiar figure cut through the air. Captain America's shield flew in like a divine weapon, precisely separating the two combatants. The three main powerhouses of the Avengers finally came together at this moment.
Come here to put an end to Loki's schemes.
Then prove it. Put that hammer down.
He loves his hammer. You want me to put the hammer down?
Thor, still seething with rage, raised Mjolnir, ready to teach Captain America a lesson, but when the hammer came crashing down, Cap's shield miraculously absorbed the impact, reflecting a powerful shockwave that turned the surrounding land for miles into a wasteland. The three of them barely managed to stand still, and despite their anger, they realized that they had to calm down. Not long after, Loki was escorted onto S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Helicarrier. However, the cunning Loki showed no signs of panic. Instead, when he saw Dr. Bruce Banner, a smug smile curled on his lips. To ensure everything was foolproof, Fury had Loki locked up in a specially designed cage. Yet Loki casually revealed the truth, pointing out that this cage was never meant for him. The moment he said this, everyone was stunned, and all eyes turned toward Bruce. Seizing the opportunity, Loki exposed S.H.I.E.L.D.'s real agenda. He claimed they weren't looking for the Tesseract for clean energy or the betterment of humanity, but rather to harness its immense power. His words rippled through the room like a stone thrown into a calm lake. Though Fury didn't respond directly, the seeds of doubt were planted in everyone's minds. Tony was the first to take action. On the surface, he continued his usual routine, but in secret, he ordered Jarvis to hack into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s system. Steve, using his status within S.H.I.E.L.D. as cover, easily infiltrated the depths of a secret warehouse. There, hidden from the world, lay weapons that didn't belong to this Earth. At that moment, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s hidden ambitions were fully exposed. An enraged Steve grabbed one of the weapons and stormed into the lab, just in time to catch Fury confronting Tony about why Jarvis was attempting to breach S.H.I.E.L.D.'s firewall. Faced with the undeniable truth, Fury had no choice but to explain. He revealed that when Thor was banished to Earth for his mistakes, it unintentionally brought great calamity to the planet. Yet, when humans faced beings of higher power, they felt utterly helpless. This is why S.H.I.E.L.D. was developing superweapons to defend against godlike civilizations like Thor's.
A visitor from another planet who had a grudge match that leveled a small town. We learned that not only are we not alone, but we are hopelessly, hilariously outgunned.
My people want nothing but peace with your planet.
But you're not the only people out there, are you?
And you're not the only threat. The world's filling up with people who can't be matched. They can't be controlled.
Like you controlled the cube?
Your work with the Tesseract is what drew Loki to it, and his allies.
Thor countered, arguing that by activating the Tesseract, Earth had signaled that it was ready for a higher level of warfare, which is why it attracted the attention of more advanced beings. The two sides clashed fiercely, trading harsh words and accusations. Just as tensions reached a boiling point, Dr. Banner brought up the issue of the cage once more, unconsciously tightening his grip on the scepter in his hand. Meanwhile, Hawkeye, now leading an elite strike team, had silently approached the Helicarrier. Fully armed soldiers were ready to launch an attack on S.H.I.E.L.D. Whether the members of the Avengers could join forces to overcome this challenge would determine the fate of the Earth. Suddenly, With Engine 3 malfunctioning severely, chaos erupted inside the Helicarrier, even though Steve and Thor had just been at each other's throats. When danger struck, Steve still showed concern and helped Tony. Tony quickly suited up in his Iron Man armor and rushed toward the damaged engine. With rapid and precise analysis, Iron Man swiftly devised a repair plan. Without hesitation, he dove into the massive engine, using his laser cutters to clear debris that was clogging the turbines. Then, using the force of his fall, he skillfully reset the central blades back into position. Meanwhile, Bruce was getting too emotional and losing control of his body. Despite Black Widow's desperate attempts to stop his transformation, the Hulk exploded into a fit of rage. Seeing the danger, Black Widow immediately turned to flee, trying to use the complex terrain to buy herself some time. However, in the face of the Hulk's immense strength, the once impenetrable steel plates were torn apart like thin paper, and Black Widow quickly found herself pushed to the brink of desperation. Fortunately, Thor arrived just in time, holding off the Hulk by sheer force. Although Thor possessed godlike strength, he struggled to gain the upper hand against the Hulk's uncontrollable fury. Thor tries to wake the Hulk up with his words, but is blown away by his punches. Unwilling to back down, Thor retaliated with a powerful hammer strike, further enraging the already furious Hulk. The Hulk tried to catch the incoming Mjolnir but couldn't move it at all. As the Hulk grew more uncontrollable, Agent Hill decisively called in air support. The jets locked onto the target and quickly launched their attack, but even the specialized missiles couldn't harm the Hulk in the slightest. In a single bound, the Hulk leaped onto one of the jets, easily destroying its engine. The pilot tried to eject, but the Hulk grabbed him, tossing him away like a toy. With a deafening explosion, the Hulk and the jet both plummeted to the ground. At that moment, the control room was also fraught with danger. A grenade was suddenly thrown in, but Agent Hill, with her quick reflexes, dodged the fatal blast with a backflip. Hawkeye and his team then stormed the command center. In the shadows, Hawkeye used his bow and arrow to destroy the operating system of another engine. With the sudden shutdown of Engine 1, the Helicarrier began to tilt wildly, plummeting toward the ground. In the nick of time, Tony, with the help of Earth's smartest AI, Jarvis, managed to repair Engine 3. However, to get the turbines spinning again, it required an immense initial push. Tony powered up his Iron Man suit to full capacity, pushing with all his strength against the stalled turbine blades. After Tony's efforts, the turbine finally returned to its normal speed. However, just as Captain America was about to pull the lever to slow it down, a squad of soldiers suddenly burst into the room. In the chaos of dodging a grenade, Captain America lost his footing and nearly fell, only saving himself by grabbing onto a cable at the last second. Meanwhile, Iron Man was caught in the turbine's rapid spin and couldn't free himself. After a hard struggle, Iron Man finally managed to escape, but his suit was covered in damage. Seeing Captain America still fighting, Iron Man gritted his teeth and charged forward, taking down the last enemy. After dealing with the Hulk, Thor, furious, stormed off to confront Loki, only to find that Loki had already opened the cage. Thor rushed to stop him but was fooled by Loki's invisibility tricks. Thor tried to smash the cell with Mjolnir, but the glass only cracked. Loki, eager to rid himself of Thor, tried to throw him off the ship. Though they were gods, they weren't immortal. Agent Coulson, seeing the danger, tried to intervene but was stabbed from behind by Loki. Loki then hit the switch and sent Thor plummeting from the ship. Luckily, just before hitting the ground, Thor broke free from the cage. Though battered, he survived. With his last breath, Coulson managed to fire one final shot at Loki, forcing him to retreat in humiliation. After a fierce fight, Black Widow also succeeded in defeating Hawkeye and managed to bring him back to his senses. However, this defeat dealt a heavy blow to the Avengers. Even Tony, usually so self-assured, was forced to reflect on his actions. They realized that only by standing united could they face the threat of Loki. According to Tony's calculations, to activate the Tesseract, Loki would need a massive energy source. To showcase his dominance, Loki would likely choose a landmark building as his target. Determined to make up for their earlier failure, the Avengers regrouped, more cautious and united than ever. Not long after, Iron Man, battered and bruised, stumbled back to the rooftop of Stark Tower, only to find Dr. Eric Selvig tampering with a mysterious machine. Without hesitation, Iron Man fired a repulsor blast to try to stop him, but the energy was reflected back, knocking him away. Left with no choice, Iron Man landed on his workstation and ordered Jarvis to disengage his damaged suit. Loki attempted to persuade Tony to join his side, but Tony feigned cooperation with Loki, while secretly slipping on a specially designed wristband. When Loki realized Tony was only feigning interest, he became enraged, grabbing Tony and preparing to hurl him off Stark Tower. At that moment, the wristband Tony was wearing activated its function. Tony quickly called for Jarvis to initiate the backup suit. Using the wristband's precise tracking and Jarvis calculations, the new suit deployed mid-fall, wrapping around Tony and stabilizing his descent. Just before hitting the ground, Tony accelerated back up to the rooftop, where he seized the opportunity to counterattack, knocking Loki to the floor. By now, the portal device had activated, and a beam of blue light shot into the sky, opening a massive portal above. Countless Chitauri soldiers poured into Earth like a flood. Iron Man immediately switched to combat mode, launching missiles and energy blasts, taking out enemies one after another. However, the sheer number of Chitauri was overwhelming, like a swarm of locusts, impossible to fully eradicate. They descended upon innocent civilians, turning the once peaceful streets into a war zone. Loki stood atop the tower, clad in his Asgardian armor, reveling in the success of his perfect plan. Suddenly, Thor, the god of thunder, descended from the sky like a god. This spectacular sight made Loki's eyes turn to determination, and he officially declared war on his older brother. With the power of the Mind Stone amplifying his abilities, Loki's strength surged. For a moment, the battle between the two brothers became fierce and evenly matched, sparks flying in the very air around them, trembling from the intensity. At that moment, Hawkeye and Black Widow, the two warriors who had arrived late, finally reached the battlefield. They first teamed up with Tony to fend off a wave of Chitauri forces. Then, their attention was drawn to the epic battle between Thor and Loki. With no time to waste, they piloted the jet forward, intending to join the battle. However, Loki struck them with the Scepter of Mind, causing the jet to lose control and plummet downward. In the nick of time, Hawkeye and Black Widow activated the emergency landing system. Fortunately, the jet was exceptionally durable, allowing them to make a safe crash landing in the middle of the street. Though they faced great danger, they had escaped unscathed. After disembarking from the jet, they had no time to catch their breath and immediately rushed toward the portal. However, when they arrived at the base of the portal, the scene before them was terrifying. Countless grotesque creatures poured out of the portal like a tidal wave, including massive alien beasts. Beneath the thick armor of these beasts hid even more Chitauri soldiers. As soon as the Chitauri hit the ground, they began hunting down civilians, turning the city into a living hell. Flames consumed the sky, and the streets echoed with the screams of the helpless.
Look around!
Seeing the devastation before him, Loki realized that this disaster was of his own making, but the arrow had already been released. There was no turning back. After wounding Thor, Loki quickly fled. Faced with the immense chaos, the Avengers had no time to hesitate. Captain America led the charge. Using his agility and sharp instincts, he successfully drew a large portion of enemy fire, buying valuable time for his teammates. Meanwhile, Hawkeye and Black Widow navigated through the chaos, rescuing trapped civilians. Their figures moved through the rubble like two rays of light in the darkness, offering hope to those in despair. However, the moment of reprieve was short-lived as Chitauri reinforcements arrived, leaving the Avengers outnumbered and overwhelmed. Despite the overwhelming odds, they stood their ground, refusing to back down, determined to defend this land at all costs. Just then, a bright flash of lightning tore across the sky. Thor returned to the battlefield. He not only rescued Black Widow and Hawkeye but also delivered a crushing blow to the advancing enemies. The Avengers quickly reunite in order to fight the enemy more effectively. Iron Man fired a series of decoy missiles, successfully attracting the attention of one of the massive alien beasts. At this moment, Bruce arrived on a motorcycle, racing to the scene. Under Iron Man's clever guidance, the beast relentlessly pursued him. Bruce remained calm throughout. Just as the creature lunged at Iron Man, Bruce transformed into the Hulk, delivering a devastating punch that sent the beast flying. Iron Man followed up with a high-explosive missile, bringing the creature crashing down. The Avengers were reunited once again, with the Chitauri forces pouring in. The Avengers knew they had to end the battle quickly. Under Captain America's coordinated command, they each took on a specific role. Hawkeye handled aerial surveillance, keeping track of enemy movements. Tony focused on eliminating scattered Chitauri soldiers across the battlefield. Thor, wielding his divine powers, claimed the tower's highest point and summoned lightning, relentlessly attacking the portal to slow down the Chitauri reinforcements. As for the Hulk, his task was the most straightforward: destroy anything that threatened peace. The Hulk leaped up onto the exterior wall of a nearby building, unleashing his immense strength. Countless enemies were sent flying by the force of his impact. When a massive alien beast charged toward the crowd, the Hulk didn't hesitate. He leaped onto the creature's head, using his brute strength to alter its path and slam it into the ground with a thunderous crash. Though Captain America's strategy had yielded some success, it was clear that unless the portal was closed, their efforts would be in vain. So Captain America sent Black Widow onto an enemy aircraft. Black Widow easily took down the enemies on board, but soon found herself surrounded by Loki's forces. Unable to escape, thinking quickly, Black Widow called Hawkeye for support. Perched on a rooftop, Hawkeye immediately drew his bowstring to its fullest and fired an arrow straight at Loki, hitting him in a vital spot. Just as Loki was about to fall, the Hulk leaped onto the roof of Stark Tower, delivering a devastating punch that smashed Loki into the wall. But the Hulk wasn't done. He was ready to continue his assault.
Puny god.
But just then, at that moment, for Loki, time seemed to freeze. Outside, the superheroes were locked in an intense battle against the enemy, and Iron Man was trapped by a massive beast. Unable to break free, with his energy nearly depleted, Iron Man ordered Jarvis to divert all remaining power to the thrusters. With a powerful thrust, Iron Man plunged into the beast's body. Though he successfully pierced through the creature, Iron Man was sent crashing hard to the ground. His arc reactor completely drained, Iron Man lay helpless on the ground, at the mercy of the enemy's attacks. On the rooftop, Hawkeye had run out of arrows, and although the Hulk was still fighting, he was slowly being overwhelmed by the Chitauri's firepower. Across the city, injured civilians and burning buildings filled the streets, and the battlefield had become a scene of utter devastation. Despair hung in the air as everyone silently prayed for an end to this nightmare. But at that critical moment, the World Security Council made an extreme decision. They bypassed Fury and ordered the pilots to drop a nuclear bomb on the city. Despite Fury's desperate attempts to stop it, one plane successfully launched, carrying the missile toward the city. In this moment of peril, Iron Man mustered all his remaining strength to break free from his attackers, using the last bit of energy in his suit to race toward the nuclear missile. With just 5 seconds left before detonation, Iron Man had a flash of inspiration and redirected the missile into the portal. Even though his suit's energy was nearly gone, and knowing this was a one-way trip, Iron Man pushed harder, driving the missile into space. Just as Iron Man entered space, his suit lost all power. He released the missile, and inertia carried it forward, finally detonating it on the Chitauri mothership. But Iron Man, like a falling star, plummeted back toward Earth, completely out of control. With the Chitauri's energy source destroyed, their soldiers collapsed, and the city's immediate crisis was averted. As the explosion threatened to ripple back toward Earth, Captain America urgently commanded Black Widow to close the portal. At the moment the portal closed, Iron Man suddenly plummeted down from above. Although everyone cheered, Iron Man was unconscious, and Thor rushed to help. But before he could reach him, a shadow flashed by. The Hulk caught Tony just before he hit the ground, slamming into the earth with him. Though the Hulk roughly shoved Iron Man aside after the landing, he couldn't help but show concern for Tony's safety. Thankfully, Tony still had a faint sign of life, and after a few moments, he finally regained consciousness.
What the hell? What just happened? Please tell me nobody kissed me.
We won.
However, the story doesn't end here. At the film's conclusion, Fury decides to hand Loki over to Thor, who will take him back to Asgard to face judgment. Additionally, Fury entrusts Thor with the Tesseract to return it to their realm. After enduring this harrowing battle, the Avengers each return to their normal lives. However, with just one command from Fury, these superheroes would reunite at any moment. Though the war brought endless pain and sacrifice, they believe that as long as they stand together, nothing can stop them. And so, the first Avengers film comes to a close, marking the end of Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Next up, Phase 2 will begin. See you then.